The Walter Sisulu University Council, led by Professor Tembeka Ngcukaitobi, has arrived at the home of the late student Sisonke Mbolekwa at Tshepisong village in Matatiele. Now, the aim of the visit is to offer support and convey their message of condolences. The deceased was shot and killed during student protests at the university early last week. The students went to the streets to voice their concerns over numerous issues, including their living conditions at the university's residences. It follows last night's Eastern Cape High Court ruling halting evictions at the Walter Sisulu University. Let's continue to get reaction following that court order yesterday. We're now joined by Legal Analyst Mpumelelo Zikalala. Mpumelelo, a very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for your time. So, last night's, judgment in terms of Judge Mbolelo Jolwana not only resolved to interdict the university from evicting the students, but also issued an order interdicting the students from vandalizing the university's property. Just give us your take on, the court proceedings and just how important this judgment was for either party.
Good afternoon to you, and also good afternoon to your viewers. Well, you could say it was a win for both parties. From the side of the university, in which they were seeking to protect the interests of the university and also the assets, it was a win for them. If there's going to be an order which is issued against the student to say, don't vandalize. If you do so, you must know that you are not doing it in a vacuum, but you are doing it in a space in which you will be found liable if you are indeed found that you are indeed the perpetrator. From the side of the university, the court coming to the aid of the students to say, you are here as an institution of higher learning, so your doors must be open so that at the end of the day, learning should be able to continue. So it was a win-win situation for all parties that were involved in that matter.
I mean, I don't know how much of it you were listening to, but I mean, the judge was very clear too on the importance of the safety of students, given very real examples of what possibly could happen should they be evicted, particularly during this time. What message does this or could this send, given how in most cases where there is violent protests on campuses or high levels of vandalism, most institutions, choose to suspend classes and order immediate evacuations?
Certainly, the judge was developing what most universities would do, as you stated when you started your intro, to then say, well, it's all well and easy to say to students, go back home, but let's look at the reality and the financial situations of each student that is involved. So if you say to somebody who's at the institution, go back home to Limpopo, for example, what are the financial implications of such? When can they get home? Is the time in which you're sending them home the one which is appropriate? If you say you must go out in the evening, when are they going to arrive? Let's look at the safety of the students as they are there. So the time in which mostly would be used by all institutions and maybe other provincial divisions will be to say, before we grant an eviction order or we grant that interdict, let's look at the individual circumstances of each child. Will a child be able to execute what you are looking for? Are there any other lesser means in which you could be able to achieve what you want to achieve? Or are you simply going for the jugular, which is eviction, something that can be avoided at times if parties are able to sit down and be able to discuss this thing over a round table? So on the next occasion, definitely it's going to be a bit of a mountain to climb for tertiary institutions seeking to evict students when there are student protests taking on.
And I just want to talk about other, developments around this particular protest. We know that, of course, one student, Sisonke Mbolekwa, was shot and killed at the commencement of these protests, resulting, of course, in the arrest of the university's employee. Several other students were also injured following confrontations with the university's private security. Are we likely to see any legal challenges against the institution, and how would then these hold up in court? Because, I mean, like one student was saying in previous interviews, that it's not every day that an SRC, takes or has the audacity to take an institution like this university, for instance, to court.
Well, every matter will be assessed on a case-by-case basis, so to depend mostly on the type of evidence in which you are able to show. But from the side of the students, being able to show that you were in the right place at the right time, you are a student supposed to be there at that particular place and time, despite that there's a protest which is taking on. And let's now look at the person who is now carrying this lethal weapon or something that can be able to hurt you, were they able to use it in an appropriate manner within the context in which they're employed to do, or was it a mistaken judgment on them when wanting to use this lethal force that has caused harm upon you. If you're able to prove that harm has indeed taken place, then the normal general and special damages will be able to come through. So unless maybe the institution and the students are able to sit this one out and come to a conclusion and say, well, we may have been both wrong in the situation, the manner in which we've handled it. Let's shake hands and maybe move on and say this is a lesson learned. There's nothing of this sort which is going to take place ever again. I think that's what's going to help the students and the university moving forward. But there's certainly nothing stopping the students from going and suing the university for damages that they might have incurred.
And does the council's way forward give us a glimpse in terms of how this might ultimately be resolved, whether in court or out of court? I mean, one of the things that the council says of the university is that an independent investigation that will be led by retired Justice Chris Jafta, assisted by 2 advocates and an attorney, will be appointed now by the registrar on behalf of the council to conduct a thorough investigation into the events, including their underlying causes. I mean, what do we make of this particular statement?
In fact, it's a progressive, let me say, council, because they are saying we're not leaving anything to chance. We're not going to leave anything or any questions which are going to be unanswered. Anyone who is to blame or they've just done something wrong will, at the end of the day, be able to account. So taking that step and saying, I want to investigate this matter and get to the bottom of it, find who's to blame and who's not to blame, and make them accountable. It's a step in the right direction. So it is a good initiative and a good action from the council to say, let's not leave everything to law enforcement agencies. Let's do our own self-introspection. Maybe there are certain things in which we're going to learn ourselves as council and then impute upon the university's management and university at large to say, in situations such as these ones, this is what needs to be handled. And we must also remember that there must have been a source of this disagreement that has taken place and that has led or accumulated to these events that have led us to where we are now. So let's identify the source and be able to deal with the issues once and for all so that you do not ever have to deal with them ever again. So it is a good initiative from their side.
All right, Mpumelelo, thank you so much for your time. And a legal analyst there, Mpumelelo Zikalala, for us. Of course, the High Court in Mthatha having ruled in favor of the Walter Sisulu University's SRC, preventing the university from evicting students from its campuses.